I'll never forget the day my world cracked open. The day I realized that some people will try to shrink you just so they can feel bigger. My name is Clara, and this is a story about betrayal, ambition, and the fire it takes to rise from ashes. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday morning at Crestwood Industries, a place where polished floors reflected fluorescent lights and egos were as sharp as glass shards. I was sitting in the sleek conference room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The air smelled faintly of coffee and desperation. That's when she said it. Those 3 words that would change everything. Nothing special. The CEO, Victoria Langston, had called me into the meeting under the pretense of reviewing my latest project proposal, a campaign for one of our biggest clients, something I'd poured months of sleepless nights and countless cups of black coffee into. She sat there across from me, her perfectly tailored navy suit screaming authority, while her lips curled into what could only be described as disdain. "This," she said, waving my meticulously crafted presentation like it was yesterday's trash, "is nothing special." My heart stopped, just for a second, but long enough that I felt the silence stretch out between us like taffy. Nothing special. This wasn't just work, this was me. Every idea, every strategy, every late night spent staring at spreadsheets until my eyes burned. It was all part of who I was. And now here she was, dismissing it as if it meant nothing. I don't know why I expected more from her. Maybe because I'd given her everything, my loyalty, my creativity, my soul. And for what? To be treated like another cog in her machine? But instead of arguing or defending myself, I did something unexpected. I left. Not just the room, not just the building, but the entire company. Right then and there, I walked out without looking back. Looking back now, I realize how naive I'd been before that moment. Before Crestwood, I thought success was about climbing ladders, checking boxes, and earning titles. I believed in hard work paying off, in fairness and meritocracy. Oh, how wrong I was. Success isn't linear, it's messy, brutal, and often built on the backs of those willing to sacrifice their dignity for recognition. At least, that's what I learned during my time at Crestwood. When I first joined the company 5 years ago, I was fresh-faced and eager, armed with a degree from a prestigious university and dreams too big for my small-town upbringing. Back then, I saw Victoria as a mentor, someone who could guide me through the labyrinth of corporate politics and help me find my footing. She took notice of me early on, not because of my talent, though she'd never admit that, but because I reminded her of herself. Ambitious, relentless, hungry. At first, things went well. I worked tirelessly, staying late nights, volunteering for projects no one else wanted, and delivering results that exceeded expectations. Slowly but surely, I climbed the ranks, earning promotions and accolades along the way. People started noticing me, the quiet girl from accounting who somehow managed to land major accounts and turn failing campaigns around. It felt good, intoxicating even, to see my efforts pay off. For a while, I convinced myself that I belonged there, that I deserved to sit among the elite. But then came the cracks, the subtle jabs in meetings, the way Victoria would take credit for my ideas in front of executives, the dismissive tone whenever I dared to question her decisions. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself that this was just part of the game. You had to play nice, keep your head down, and wait for your turn. But deep down, I knew something was off. There was a coldness in her eyes whenever she looked at me, a calculation behind her smile that made my skin crawl. Still, I stayed. Why? Because leaving felt like failure. Because I told myself that I needed her approval, that her validation mattered more than my own sense of worth. How foolish I was. In hindsight, it's clear now that Victoria didn't care about me or my potential. She cared about control, about keeping everyone around her in line. And when I finally stood up to her by walking away, I became a threat, a reminder that power isn't absolute, that rebellion is possible. Walking out of Crestwood that day was both terrifying and liberating. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I felt a strange mix of emotions swirling inside me. Anger, relief, fear, excitement. What would I do next? Where would I go? The truth was I didn't have a plan. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there any longer, suffocating under the weight of someone else's expectations. For the first few weeks, I threw myself into freelance projects, taking on whatever work came my way just to keep busy. It wasn't glamorous, writing blog posts for startups, designing social media ads for local businesses, but it gave me a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. No more pointless meetings, no more micromanaging bosses, no more pretending to be someone I wasn't. For the first time in a long time, I felt like myself again. But freedom comes at a cost. Without the stability of a steady paycheck or the prestige of a corporate title, doubts began creeping in. Was I making a mistake? Could I really survive on my own? These questions haunted me every night as I lay awake, staring at the ceiling and wondering if I'd thrown away everything I'd worked so hard for. Then came the call. It was Victoria, or rather, her assistant, calling to set up a meeting. Apparently, Crestwood was struggling without me. The client whose campaign I'd pitched had pulled out after hearing about my departure, citing lack of confidence in the team's ability to deliver. Other projects were falling apart, deadlines being missed, morale plummeting. They needed me back, or so the message went. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony. After treating me like disposable garbage, they suddenly decided I was indispensable? But another part of me felt a flicker of satisfaction. Justice, sweet and bitter, served cold. For once, they were coming to me, begging for help instead of the other way around. And yet, despite the vindication, I hesitated. Going back would mean swallowing my pride, playing their game again. But staying away meant starting over completely, building something new from scratch. Neither option seemed easy and both carried risks. So, I did what anyone in my position would do. I played it cool. I agreed to meet with them, curious to hear what they had to say. The meeting took place at a trendy cafe downtown, far removed from the sterile confines of Crestwood's offices. Victoria arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by two nervous-looking executives clutching folders filled with numbers and projections. She looked different outside the office, less intimidating, almost vulnerable. Her usual armor of confidence seemed slightly cracked, revealing glimpses of uncertainty beneath. "Clara," she began, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." I nodded politely, sipping my latte and waiting for her to continue. Let her sweat a little, I thought. Let her feel the discomfort she inflicted on me. "We need you back," she admitted, cutting straight to the chase. "Things haven't been going well since you left. Clients are unhappy, teams are disorganized, and frankly, we're losing ground fast." Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken desperation. I watched as she shifted uncomfortably in her seat, avoiding eye contact. This wasn't the same woman who dismissed my work as nothing special just weeks earlier. Something had changed. "I'm listening," I said, finally leaning back in my chair. "But why should I come back? You made it pretty clear how you felt about my contributions." Victoria sighed, running a hand through her perfectly styled hair. "Look, maybe I was harsh. Maybe I underestimated you. But the truth is, we need someone like you. Someone who understands the business, who knows how to get things done. We're offering a significant raise, a senior leadership position, full creative control. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes." The phrase echoed in my mind, stirring memories of all the times I'd begged for scraps of recognition, only to be met with indifference. Now, here they were, practically groveling at my feet. It was tempting, intoxicating even, to imagine strutting back into Crestwood as the hero they couldn't survive without. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't fix anything. Returning to that toxic environment would only drag me back into the same cycle of self-doubt and resentment. So I smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips, and leaned forward slightly. "Let me think about it," I said, relishing the flicker of panic in her eyes. "I'll get back to you soon." As I walked away from the cafe, I couldn't help but feel a surge of power coursing through me. For the first time in years, I held all the cards. And I wasn't ready to play them just yet. The days following that meeting were a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, I felt invincible, like I finally had the upper hand in a game I'd been losing for years. On the other, there was a gnawing uncertainty beneath it all. Was this really what I wanted? To return to Crestwood and take my place at the table they were now desperate to offer me? Or was this my chance to break free entirely, to build something that belonged solely to me? I spent hours pacing my tiny apartment, replaying Victoria's words in my head. Whatever it takes. Those 3 words circled endlessly, mocking me. Whatever it takes meant nothing more than desperation dressed up as opportunity. They weren't offering me respect or acknowledgement. They were simply trying to fill a void I'd left behind. And while part of me craved the validation, to march back into that office with my head held high and watch them grovel even further. I couldn't shake the feeling that returning would be a betrayal of myself. Still, practicality tugged at me. Freelancing wasn't sustainable forever. Rent needed paying, bills piled up, and the allure of stability whispered seductively in my ear. Could I afford to walk away from such an offer? More importantly, could I afford not to? It was during one of these restless nights, staring blankly at my laptop screen, that inspiration struck. What if I didn't have to choose between going back and starting over? What if I could create something entirely new? Something that gave me control without tethering me to Crestwood's toxic leash. The idea began as a flicker, but quickly grew into a flame. Why settle for their crumbs when I could bake my own cake? By morning, I had a plan, or at least the rough outline of one. If Crestwood thought I was indispensable, then maybe it was time to prove just how indispensable I truly was. Instead of returning to them, I decided to strike out on my own, to launch my own consulting firm, leveraging everything I'd learned and endured during my time at Crestwood. It wouldn't be easy, but the challenge excited me in a way I hadn't felt in years. The first step was simple: securing clients. I reached out to former colleagues who'd left Crestwood under similar circumstances, people who understood the culture and shared my frustrations. Many of them jumped at the chance to collaborate, eager to escape the same cycle of burnout and exploitation. One by one, I assembled a team of talented individuals who believed in the vision I was building. A company where creativity thrived, voices mattered, and success wasn't measured by how much you could sacrifice. Next came branding. I poured every ounce of energy into crafting a brand identity that stood in stark contrast to Crestwood's cold, corporate aesthetic. Our logo was bold yet approachable, our mission statement clear and unapologetic, empowering innovation without compromise. Every detail, from the color palette to the tone of our website copy, was designed to reflect the values I'd always wished Crestwood embodied but never did. But perhaps the most satisfying move came when I sent Victoria a carefully worded email. In it, I declined her offer, not with anger or bitterness, but with calm confidence. "Thank you for considering me," I wrote, "but I've decided to pursue a different path. I'll be launching my own firm, and I'm confident we can achieve great things independently. Best of luck moving forward." Hitting send felt like releasing a weight I'd carried for far too long. For once, I wasn't reacting to someone else's terms. I was setting my own. And though I knew Victoria wouldn't take it well, I also knew she couldn't stop me. Her power over me had evaporated the moment I walked out of that conference room. Of course, starting a business from scratch came with its own set of challenges. There were late nights spent drafting proposals, endless phone calls chasing leads, and moments of doubt so overwhelming I questioned whether I'd made the right decision. But through it all, there was also a sense of purpose I'd never experienced before. This wasn't about pleasing anyone else or climbing someone else's ladder. It was about creating something meaningful, something mine. Word spread quickly about my new venture, thanks in large part to the network of disgruntled ex-Crestwood employees who rallied behind me. Within weeks, we landed our first major client, a tech startup looking to revamp its marketing strategy. Their CEO, impressed by our fresh perspective and collaborative approach, became one of our biggest advocates, referring us to other businesses in need of innovative solutions. Momentum built steadily, and soon we were turning down projects simply because we didn't have the bandwidth to take them on. Meanwhile, rumors began circulating about Crestwood's struggles. Projects continued to falter. Key staff members resigned and morale plummeted. Victoria reportedly grew increasingly erratic, micromanaging teams and lashing out at anyone who dared question her decisions. It was almost poetic. The very behaviors she'd used to control others were now unraveling her empire. And yet, despite the chaos unfolding at Crestwood, I found myself feeling less vindicated and more free. Revenge wasn't the goal anymore. Watching them beg me to come back had been satisfying, sure, but it paled in comparison to the joy of building something authentic, something real. Months passed, and my firm grew beyond anything I'd imagined. We moved into a bright, open-concept office space downtown, complete with exposed brick walls and plants hanging from the ceiling. The atmosphere buzzed with energy, laughter, and collaboration, the polar opposite of Crestwood's sterile, suffocating environment. My team thrived, taking pride in their work and supporting each other in ways I'd rarely seen before. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk reviewing a presentation for an upcoming pitch, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was an article headline from a popular industry blog. Crestwood Industries faces leadership crisis amid rising competition. Curious, I clicked the link and began reading. According to the piece, Crestwood's decline had accelerated rapidly in recent months. Several high-profile clients had defected to competitors, including, notably, my firm. Internal strife had reached a boiling point, with employees citing poor management and lack of direction as primary reasons for leaving. And at the center of it all stood Victoria, clinging desperately to her crumbling throne. A small smile crept across my face as I scrolled through the comments section. Many praised my firm's innovative approach and ethical practices, contrasting them sharply with Crestwood's outdated methods. Others speculated about Victoria's future, questioning whether she'd survive another quarter. Reading those words filled me with a quiet sense of triumph, not because I'd caused her downfall, but because I'd proven that success didn't require playing dirty or tearing others down. There was room for integrity in this cutthroat world, and I intended to claim it. As I closed the tab and returned to my work, I realized something profound. Revenge isn't nearly as sweet as creation. Building something from the ground up, nurturing it with passion and authenticity, that's where true power lies. Crestwood could crumble for all I cared. I'd already moved on. The curveball came in the form of an email from a name I hadn't seen in months, Victoria Langston. My stomach tightened as I opened it, half expecting another desperate plea or thinly veiled insult. But instead, her message was surprisingly humble. "Clara," she began, "I owe you an apology. What I said about your work, that it was nothing special, was wrong. You were always exceptional, and I failed to recognize that until it was too late. Crestwood is struggling, and while I take full responsibility for its decline, I can't help but wonder if things might have been different had I valued your contributions more." Her words landed like a punch to the gut, not because they stung, but because they carried a weight I wasn't prepared for. For so long, I'd imagined this moment, Victoria admitting she'd been wrong, swallowing her pride, begging for forgiveness. And yet, now that it was here, I felt no satisfaction. Just sadness for her, for me, for all the wasted years we'd both spent chasing validation in places that couldn't give it. She went on to explain that Crestwood was restructuring, trying to salvage what remained of its reputation. She asked if I'd consider consulting with them, not as an employee, but as an independent advisor. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very woman who once dismissed my ideas now wanted to pay me for them. For days, I wrestled with the decision. Part of me wanted to say yes, to walk into Crestwood one last time, head held high, and watch Victoria squirm under the weight of her own mistakes. But another part of me knew better. Revenge disguised as redemption wasn't worth the trouble. I'd already built something greater than anything Crestwood could offer. Why tarnish it by revisiting the past? In the end, I responded with a simple, polite refusal. "Thank you for reaching out," I wrote. "While I appreciate the gesture, my focus remains on growing my firm and supporting the clients who believe in our vision. I wish you and Crestwood the best moving forward." Hitting send felt like closing a door I'd been holding open for far too long. This time, though there was no hesitation, no lingering doubt, I'd made peace with my decision, and with Victoria. Whatever happened to her, or Crestwood, wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Months later, news broke that Crestwood Industries had filed for bankruptcy. It was a shocking development, even to those of us who'd watched its slow descent over the past year. Victoria stepped down quietly, disappearing from the public eye without so much as a statement. Some speculated she'd retire. Others guessed she'd try to start fresh somewhere else. Either way, her reign was over. As for me, life continued to flourish in ways I never dreamed possible. My firm became a beacon of innovation, attracting top talent and earning accolades from industry leaders. We weren't just competing with companies like Crestwood, we were redefining the game entirely. Clients praised us not only for our results, but for the culture we'd created. One rooted in collaboration, respect, and authenticity. One evening, as I stood on the rooftop terrace of our new office building, overlooking the glittering city skyline, I reflected on how far I'd come. From the girl who once craved Victoria's approval to the woman standing confidently in her own light, the journey had been anything but easy. But every struggle, every sleepless night, every ounce of self-doubt had been worth it. A soft voice interrupted my thoughts. "Clara? Everyone's heading out for drinks. Are you coming?" I turned to see Mia, one of my closest colleagues, smiling warmly at me. Behind her, the rest of the team waited, their faces lit with camaraderie and excitement. For a moment, I considered declining, the allure of solitude tempting, but then I shook my head and smiled back. "Of course," I said, joining them. "Let's celebrate." As we walked together through the bustling streets, laughter echoing around us, I realized something profound. Success isn't about proving someone wrong or climbing higher than everyone else. It's about finding joy in the climb itself, in the people you meet along the way, the challenges you overcome, and the legacy you leave behind. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, unapologetically successful.